welcome to today's episode of the Group Therapy Podcast. Today we have former professional wrestler, booker, promoter, all around. Just you've had your hand in about everything at wrestling at one point. And if you've seen him on the other show on Talk and Roll, he's also in a ton of punk bands. GeeGee Bradley, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm really only in one punk band consistently, but I do reunion shows with old bands, and I'm always doing something. But since we're here to talk about wrestling, I was a pro wrestler for a few years, and myself and the Parker boys started RockStar Pro Wrestling, and we ran for a decade until a once-a-century plague shut us down.
Yeah, that's what sucks. And me and Aaron, Matt, Ron, we were all talking about how Rockstar was lightning in a bottle. You guys were just the place to go for wrestling in Dayton. There was other little promotions here and there, but I wouldn't say every Friday because I couldn't be down there for Wednesdays. Your Wednesday show, which was like your your Raw or your SmackDown, was Amped. Was it Amped?
Yep.
Yes. It's been a while. I have to try to remember this off the top of my head. I should have took notes.
Hey, it's been a while for me too.
Yeah. But we would always go down there. One Friday, we'd go down there for the pay-per-view, and it was always fun. Always. Even if I don't know how many shows we went to. I want to say there might have been one show that was just kind of and it was oh man, I'm trying to remember who it even was, but it was such a weirdly paced show, and I know that's really hard to get, but almost every show you guys had really well paced, except for that one show. And I don't know if it was the talent, because there was a lot of new guys in there. I'm pretty sure
Who knows? There's so many weird things that can happen when you're putting on like a live event, and matches at a certain time, and then somebody goes over their time, somebody's hurt, somebody's running late, there's so many variables that we're like, okay, well, match 2, you're going on first instead of match 1, and there can be like weird last minute scrambles. So it may have been something like that. Who knows?
Yeah. But we've talked about this at the shop a lot, because all of us were there that hang out at the shop the night the hooligan, I can't remember which one, broke his legs.
Oof. Yeah.
Oh,
it was gnarly.
Oh man, that was the gnarliest thing I've ever seen. That close up.
And it sounded like a gunshot in the building, like that bone hitting steel.
Yeah. For those who do not know, I don't remember which hooligan it was. He did a second rope moonsault onto the floor, and
just slightly overshot, and his chin hit the guardrail, and it was nasty.
Yeah, it was one of the nastiest sounds and things I've ever seen.
Because those dudes didn't wear, they didn't even wear boots, let alone kickbacks or anything. So just bare leg against steel, and flying from over the top rope down.
And he was not a small man either. He was a big boy. Yeah,
it was gnarly. I remember my friend Afton is a nurse, and she was there and like literally was like putting pressure on it until the paramedics showed up. Like,
oh man. And then what was it, like only a few minutes later, then Kyle Maverick got knocked out cold by
and of course they both happened the same show.
Yes. And we're just like, did he just get knocked out? Because it was DJ Hyde hit him.
Yep.
Yeah. And
poor Maverick legitimately got knocked out twice, cracked his head, and was bleeding everywhere at one of the Oregon District Halloween shows. Because those are outdoors on the street. We had the ring in the middle of Fifth Street. And I think Dave jumped off of a beer truck or something. But yeah, there was a dive and somebody dove onto Maverick and he hit too hard and was unconscious and bleeding all over Fifth Street. We had to call an ambulance into the middle of Fifth Street in the middle of the 10,000 people in the Oregon for the crazy Halloween thing.
Yeah, that's insane. And the worst part about it is, didn't Kyle leave wrestling to go into boxing?
Well, he had always done both. And
Okay.
yeah, he had always kind of like trained in both and dabbled in both. And yeah, so he went back to boxing for a little bit. And
I don't know if I'd go back into boxing after being knocked out twice.
well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you have to have that, lack of fear. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, 'cause what if you get knocked out? You have to be prepared for that.
Oh,
So
wow. Well, like I said, Rockstar was a lot of fun, and I haven't got him on the show yet, but I've talked to John Murray, who was
John Murray Pro,
the
John Murray.
flag bearer. Man, that guy carried the Rockstar colors everywhere he went. Man, there for a while.
And he was the most unlikely, like super over baby
Oh
face.
yeah.
And it was funny when the whole Jim Cornette thing
Oh
happened.
dude.
Like, for those who don't know,
Yeah.
Jim Cornette, famous wrestling manager, now famous wrestling podcaster, uh, he, is famous for shitting on everything in modern wrestling. And he saw a clip from a show we co-promoted with Impact and just ripped Murray about being out of shape and blah 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 blah. And it was just like, if he could have seen it live, maybe he could have got it, because there'd be 200-300 people packed into that room. If it was like a big Revolver show or a
Oh yeah.
show
That
with
thing was
big
packed,
guests, we
packed.
could have 500 people crammed
Yep.
in that room, and they'd all be chanting John Murray's name.
Yep.
He was beloved.
Oh well, it's funny because that night I'm listening to his podcast while I'm doing the dishes, and I'm in the kitchen doing
Live when
dishes, blah, blah, and I hear him talking about it. I'm like, I was there. I ended up messaging him and sending him a message. I'm like, dude, I was like, that's only like a 10-second clip of what actually happened. I go, he's a comedy wrestler. That's his gimmick. It's his whole thing. And I was like, it's not. And he goes, because it was like something. He goes, oh, Impact is bringing it. I was like, it wasn't even. He wasn't an Impact wrestler. It was an Impact. I legit talked to him probably an hour back and forth on freaking, I don't know, like Twitter or something one night, because I was backing Rockstar the entire time. I was like, you don't get it. I was like,
Hey,
dude,
the proof is in the pudding, man. Like, you
yeah,
say what you will, but look at how many of our guys are still today on national television.
yeah,
How many guys that just passed through, top indie guys that we brought through that are in WWE, AEW, TNA, New Japan, whatever, whatever.
yeah.
And then, there were guys that were like regular roster guys that moved to Dayton to train with us that are now, international TV stars. Look, MJF,
Yep.
look at, ABC, the Rascals, homegrown, Ohio boys that,
Oh, yeah.
trained with us, and now I get to, watch them travel the world and perform on TV every week, and proud of those kids.
Oh, yeah. It's, I remember when watching TV and I'm sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, here comes Zachary Wentz and Desmond. And I'm like, oh shit, they signed with them for NXT. Holy crap. I was
Oh,
like,
did you not know? You literally saw them on TV? That was how you first found out?
yeah, I hadn't been. I kind of got out of it a while post pandemic. I was only going to live shows. I wasn't watching like anything on TV. I was still going to seeing wrestling, but I just kind of got out of I broadcast wrestling. I wasn't watching Impact. I wasn't watching AEW, New Japan. Wasn't watching any of that at the time. I was watching old stuff, and I think like Japanese women's wrestling. So I was watching some Stardom stuff like that. Just because I was proving a point to a couple girls I knew. I was like, oh, they're like, oh, that's. I was like, hold on a second. Watch Japanese women's wrestling. They're the far more brutal than any guy you'll ever see in the United States. I was like trying to explain. I was like, I like Asuka, but I love Kana. And I had to pull up a bunch of her matches, and they're like, so that's literally the reason. Then I was watching like old freaking NWA stuff and World Class and old stuff. But no, I all of a sudden I saw them. I'm like, holy crap! All right, cool.
Oh, my chupacabra might be getting into frame. A little
Oh,
crazy
it's
dog.
fine. I had to run to mine upstairs. They're with Tina right now because if not, they will not let me record at all. As soon as I turn this on and start talking to you, they've got to be like on me. I can't do nothing with it but I can shoot my other shows, my Saturday morning shows, my shit. No problem. They'll sit right there. They'll under the table, underneath here. They'll bark a little bit occasionally, like somebody comes down the steps. No problem. I'm recording here like this. All they want to do is climb and get my attention the entire time. So, oh man, it's crazy. But I do gotta say something though, and I think I'm cursed with Rockstar because I'm sitting there going through a bunch of pictures of all the wrestlers I've met down there, and then so many of them have been canceled.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, that was the wrestling business as a whole. We discovered that there were a handful of people that were accused of some really gross things, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that the culture's changed. I'm glad that it's not just the old boys club, and I'm glad that people, are speaking out and people are being held accountable for doing fucked up stuff.
Oh yeah,
So yeah, it was sad that people, a handful of people that we had worked with, a handful of people that we had passed through Rockstar, and you hear these allegations, you're like, ew. But you see these people for a few hours a night. If they're a regular roster guy, I get to know them better because they're there every week.
yeah.
But if they're just like an international or top indie name just passing through, I spend a few hours with them, and they, you don't know what they do in their personal
Nope,
life, and
not at all. But it's legitimately one of those things where
but
I'm
it is
sitting
funny that the guy who got famous for doing the dick flip turned out to be a creep.
there.
Surprise!
The worst part about it is that I like I can't remember how many times you brought him in there, but I've hung out with him like down there like I don't know like 3 or 4 times, and we just sat there and bullshitted for like forever.
Yeah, that's
And
what was heartbreaking because, like, I thought he was a great guy.
yeah,
I had no idea, and then you hear all these stories of women accusing him of really gross stuff, and
well, the worst part about it was even when he had the what the we had worked in a thing out. We were going to do a because he carried the workhorse title or the Iron Man something like that. I can't remember what it was now, but it's essentially the 24/7 title. Like
yeah,
anybody could get it and anything like that. And I was joking around with him. I was like, one of these days, I wanted to come up behind you and do the Vulcan neck pinch and drop you to the ground and pin you and then walk away with the title. And he goes, I'd have done it. I went, the fuck you mean you would have done it? And he's like, yeah, I'd have done it. No problem. He goes, you'd have been even on the list. You'd been like on the records as a title holder and shit. I'm like, what? And he goes, next time I'm in Rockstar, he goes, we'll do it.
yeah. You
I'm like,
mentioned Asuka; she's in the books as holding that title. John Murray held that title.
yeah. And we were gonna do that whole thing because he's like, man, yeah. He goes, come up behind me, we'll do that. He goes, I'll drop to the ground. He goes, we'll do it 1, 2, 3. He goes, and then you get up and I'm like, okay. And then of course, like a week later, we found out he was a piece of shit. It was like, oh damn it. Fucking really, guy.
And that was it. Sucked because the world was already like the pandemic and everything, like the whole world shuts down and we're all like waiting what's gonna happen, and then there's that on top of it, and you're finding out, you're hearing this about this person, that person, and it's like, I guess the wrestling landscape's going to look a lot different when the world reopens. And
Well, it's one of the ones where you're depressed because you like, I couldn't imagine you guys. You guys were promoters. You're bringing these guys in, and I hate to say this, because there were people booking these guys even after all this stuff went through, and you're just like, oh goddamn, what's the one who's he's a registered, you know, SA guy, and he's a trainer at some organization. And they're just like, okay, you don't know who I'm talking about?
off the top of my head, I'm not sure because there
Oh,
were a bunch
I
of
don't know,
names that
but
came out
it's
during that time.
yeah,
So
but
I
it's
remember, guys that passed through Rockstar because it was like, ew. But again, there were a lot of names that came out during that period. So
Yeah. But it's I'm not trying to throw you guys under the bus or nothing like that, because that's just across the board
it
on
was the wrestling
all.
business as a whole.
Yeah.
You wants to blame us? Oh, you booked that guy. Everybody did.
Book
We
that
didn't.
guy. Yeah.
You got to get mad at New Japan and whoever else. Like we didn't know. Like
Yeah. Dude, I sit there and talk to Michael Elgin for, I don't know, 40 minutes or so one night. And who would guess he'd been a creeper, whatever. But and I gotta imagine being a promoter, because you were not, you went from a wrestler to promoter. Uh, did you were booking too matches, right?
well, a little. Long story with the behind the scenes. So we always were promoters, right? Chad and
Yeah,
I and Ben, like we were concert promoters first, and we got into the business to literally learn the ropes. Like we went and trained to like literally like learn the business, and because if you're a promoter who's never taken a bump, wrestlers don't always take you seriously and don't always listen to you. You're like, what does this guy know? He's got a tax return and decided he's going to throw a wrestling show. So
yep.
it's like if you've
You're gonna get
actually
your
been in
money,
the ring,
Mark.
then wrestlers will listen to you a little bit more. So we literally just wanted to learn. We always had plans of trying to promote shows. That was always the goal.
Hmm.
And then I wrestled myself for many years, and after like injuries started piling up, and I was just banged up, and I didn't even. I was over 30. I don't remember how old, but I was in my 30s when I started
Yeah, because you were
training.
you were trying to con me into it at one point. You're like, you should train too, and I'm like,
Well,
I'm too
big
fucking old.
fan.
And your answer was always was, well, Diamond Dallas Page didn't start until I was like, dude, he was in shape when I first started. Although it's sad part, I'll be 50 next month, and I'm probably in the best shape I've been in since I was like 20. It's sad.
Hey, look at what Edge and Christian are doing in AEW right now. They're both 50 years old and in phenomenal shape, but
Yeah.
still putting on banger matches.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I'm supposed to have one match. I have a friend of mine who's a wrestler out of Tennessee. He's going to walk me through a match. We're going to have a hardcore match, so it doesn't. I don't have to do wrestling moves and suplexes and shit. So I can just pretend to hit him and stuff. And I was like, he goes, "What can you do?" I was like, "I don't know. I could probably gorilla press you over my head now." And he's like, "No, dude." He goes, they saw me like, and he's like, "Fuck, never mind." I was like, "I don't want to get hit by you." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I can." The only problem is, like I said, I'm not as limber as I used to be. I'm stronger, way stronger than I ever was. But man, I don't think I could do. I definitely couldn't walk the top rope anymore, and I definitely would not even attempt to jump off the top rope to do anything, because my knees will probably like shatter on impact. I'll pull a
Yeah,
sit.
sometimes I'll see the IWC, I'll see the awful toxic douchebags on the internet that never have anything positive to say about anything. But specifically like lately since Matt Hardy went to TNA, I've seen some people like, "Oh, he can barely move." And I'm like, "Well, years of doing all those crazy Hardy bumps and years of doing leg drops off the top rope. It's like, yeah, he's doesn't move as gracefully as he did in his younger days, but maybe it's an acquired taste, but like if you like the broken stuff, like he's still incredibly entertaining,
Oh yeah,
and he's gotten in the best shape he's been in a long time. And it's like, hey, good for him. Like let him have one last run before they hang it up.
yeah, hell with it. I went to this is bad. I've been going all the way up to Michigan to go see deathmatch wrestling, because we can't have it in Ohio, and because we can't have nothing nice down here. Uh, but literally, I can't remember who Pondo was fighting, but literally all they do was hang on the rope the entire time, because neither one of them could do shit. But they're out there putting on matches and getting in the ring and beating the ever loving crap out of each other. But if you watch, they almost never let go of that rope. So
That's the thing with some old timers that are still out on the indies. Sometimes you get like that old guy that shocks you and you're like, wow, he's still in great shape and he could still move. And then other times it's like, man, you're just trying to collect a paycheck. Like,
oh,
you stop embarrassing yourself and tarnishing your legacy.
was it? I think it's when you got. when you brought in Tito Santana,
I was shocked how huge that dude is.
dude is. I was like, and
Because
at
the
that
80s,
point,
everybody was so enormous that you like because he wasn't like all gassed up and like he was slender for the time.
yeah,
Like you thought of him as like a high flying cruiserweight, but it
yeah,
was the 80s when everyone was a giant.
yeah,
So like we brought him in, we're like, wow, Tito's huge.
yeah. What was he? He's a is he a Spanish teacher? I know that's bad to say now, but yeah, I mean,
I
he's.
don't know. He did own a barber shop for a while. He was working as a barber.
I know there for a while he was a teacher, but I couldn't remember what he taught. I'm know I'm being probably sound like I'm coming off racist, being like, oh, the Mexican guy's doing Spanish. But no, I legit think that's what he was teaching in high school. But yeah,
Maybe.
but oh yeah, you're right. You find those guys like, I never thought Ricky Steamboat was that big until he was down there at Rockstar one night and he stood up to shake my hand, and I'm like, he's a big dude. I was like, I didn't expect, because
Everyone was a giant in the
yes,
80s. So
well, they're all what 6'4", 6'5". Hogan was 6'8". You know, you're getting there against those guys, and now most of the average guys that's wrestling are my height, which is freaking crazy for me to think. I couldn't
I think
imagine being.
I think it was the rise of the popularity of MMA. Like wrestling influenced MMA and MMA influenced wrestling. So like when I was a kid, it was all big barrel chested guys with pot bellies.
Yep.
It was just like big,
Yeah.
and now like wrestlers look like athletes. You're expected to be trim and fit and have abs and not just be big.
Yeah. But then you look at those. We were just talking about the best big men in wrestling, and Bam Bam Bigelow, I think, was one of the best. Watching that man doing like flips and
Moonsault,
cartwheels, yeah,
cartwheels, yeah.
like I'm a big fat guy out there doing shit. But
Bam Bam was a huge influence on me as a kid.
love Bam Bam.
Not only, wrestling and whatever, but like back then you didn't see heavily tattooed people on television.
Nope.
And like, who's this big guy with tattoos and a flame job on his skull?
Nope.
Like little kid me thought he was the coolest thing
Oh
ever.
yeah.
Like,
Him and Jake the Snake Roberts was like the best thing about WWF back in the day for me when I was a kid. I thought those guys were awesome. I was more of a uh, NWA guy when I was a kid, watching it at 6:05 on the Superstation, and
yep,
and
me too.
watching Ric Flair and Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes and
That's the woes, baby.
that's the whoa, it's gonna have to come over here. Oh, my favorite wrestler still to this day was Arn Anderson because he just looked like a dude. And watching him, and you're realizing
It's
that,
funny when you go back and you look at some pictures of Arn, like around the time he was like TV champion or whatever, and you're like, he was like 28 and
yeah,
he looked 50 then.
yes, he's never looked young ever. Like it was like looking at the old pictures of Harley Race, and like Harley Race was born like 26. He was never. Yeah, I miss. That's why I was watching all those old matches and stuff back in the day. Because I'm just sitting there watching all these guys that I grew up watching. I was like, man, knowing full well that let's like the Von Erichs, man, like they were all in their early 20s, and you're just like, really? I mean, I know that wrestling can be hard, but how hard it is. These guys just age real fucking quick.
Well, I think that's just a generational thing, period.
Yeah.
Like, if you look back at old TV shows from 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I think is when things started turning.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a thing where like people just really took terrible care of themselves and they chain smoked and they drank too much and they ate lots of greasy food and everybody just like aged faster than they should have. And I think now people are just more cognitive of that stuff and they just, people as a whole are taking better care of themselves. People
Yeah.
smoke less, people drink less, people are eating better, just as a whole. But then again, I mean, we still have a terrible obesity problem in this country, and so that sometimes is more economic factors.
Oh yeah,
Shitty food is
100%.
cheaper.
It's so much cheaper to eat garbage food than it is to eat healthy food. I love fruit and apples and dried fruit and all that stuff. That costs me way more than going to get a steak dinner at freaking, Applebee's. So I'm like, you know, I cut way back on everything. I got like right after you guys ended Rockstar around the time of the pandemic, I started hitting the gym hard. I started eating healthy, and I don't eat fast food at all. I've cut bread and carbs way down. I do like yesterday was like my junk day is two Thursdays because it's the day I go like the movie theater and stuff like that. So it's like day I kind of eat garbage, but I eat bad like one day a week. But and I go to the gym 3 days a week, and then I work out here at home too. So I'm 50, and I don't think I feel like I'm 50 now. So I'll be 50 in less than a month. So, but
Yeah, in my now late 40s, my body is just banged up. Like my wife always jokes that like she hates wrestling and she's like wrestling ruins lives, because I have all these weird aches and pains and weird things that are wrong with me from just banging my body up.
yeah,
Like
you did that. I worked in a factory for like 30 years. My knees are buggered from standing on concrete all the time. I have nerve damage in this elbow from just hitting my funny bone too many times. And I got back problems and stuff like and it's I never stepped in the ring once.
when
Well,
I
I
was in Legbone, we wrote a song called "I Got Pains," and when I drink, they go away. And it was this joke about how everybody's getting older and everybody had something like, AJ had a bad knee and we just all talk about all these various ailments and injuries and things. And at the time, I was like the young guy in the band and I'm like, why are you guys all falling apart already? I don't understand. And then I got into wrestling and beat the hell out of my body for a few years. And now I have all the old war wounds and have like, oh, my ankle acts up and my knee acts up and I didn't have those before I got into wrestling.
Yep. Um, talking about getting into wrestling. You were trained by Shark Boy, right?
Initially, yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did a Shark Boys Shark Tank camp. It was like a 6-week camp. And go down to Cincinnati at the NWF facility, Bone Crushers, and roll around with Shark Boy and learn the fundamentals and the basics. And then sort of our graduation from his class was getting to be in a battle royal. He used to do a promotion called Buckeye Championship Wrestling or Buckeye Pro Wrestling. I think it was Buckeye Pro. Uh, but yeah, he used to do shows, and so his students, if you survive the training camp, you get to be in a battle royal, and then that sort of launches your career. But after a 6-week camp and one battle royal, you don't know anything. Like I mean, like the basic psychology and the fundamental, but like so much of it is timing.
Yeah.
So much of it is just repetition and just ring time and just doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And then a couple years in, guys just click. Where like all of a sudden they go from that rookie nervousness to where you can see the wheels turning and they're thinking, what's next and what move am I going to hit next? And then they just hit that point where it all clicks and they relax and they're comfortable. And then once a wrestler hits that point, that's when you see their career go to the next level. That's when they take it up a notch because they're not that nervous kid
Yeah.
thinking about everything anymore. It's just they're relaxed, they're in control. Hey, this didn't go how we planned, so we'll fix it. There's so many times when a young kid, you maybe uh, a spot is blown, somebody slips, something happens, and a young rookie will panic.
Yeah. I've seen it a lot. Yeah.
And, a veteran will grab a headlock and just be like, breathe. All right, now we're going to do this. And you just, calm them down and lead them through the match. I was very lucky when I was coming up training to have guys like Aaron Williams that could do that for me. The couple of times I made the PWI list, I'm convinced that one of the years, the reason I made it is because I submitted a match against Aaron. Like that was one of the best matches I ever had because Aaron Williams is so good.
Aaron Williams is the I have this discussion because I tell all these young guys that come in the shop wanting to learn wrestling and stuff like that. I tell them I was like, you ever can go work with Aaron Williams, you jump at that. I was like, that man can put a broom through a fucking great match. And literally one of my favorite matches ever at Rockstar was the Aaron Williams Jake 60-minute Iron Man match. It was they had the psychology down. They were doing right. They did the scary pins. They were working up until they did that last second whole thing. Everything. One of the best matches, that I've ever seen was that one for indie wrestling, and he blew me away. And like I said, and it was funny because I contacted Aaron one time. I was like, dude, I don't want to say this, but I think you had a bad match tonight. And he goes, dude, I got a concussion. And I go, oh shit. He goes, I got hit. I don't remember the match. And I'm like,
Was it the match that Steamboat refed?
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because he was so excited to work with one of his heroes. Ricky
Yeah.
Steamboat was the guest referee for the match, and something happened. God, it's been years. I don't remember exactly what happened, but yeah,
I,
something happened right at the beginning of the match, and he was concussed,
yeah.
and he got through the match somehow just on autopilot.
Yeah.
Just
He told me, he goes, you don't remember anything about it. He goes, I know I choked him with my belt, my tunic thing that he had that he used to wear. And he goes, I'm waiting for it, and I'm waiting for it, and I'm waiting for it. And he goes, dude, he goes, it was way into the match. He goes, in my head, it happened early. He goes, but yeah, but no, but that was it. Yeah, he got concussed like immediately because if I remember right, the guy runs across the ring. I can't remember who he's wrestling. Part of me wants to say it was Jeremiah, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Runs across and does the front kick, the head, but he doesn't like it right square and knock him the fuck out. But hell, you would have never known that he was concussed. You just thought he was having a bad off night or something like that. That was it. But he was, you know, and
I Aaron just came up. I think it was just today. I think just this morning I got to tell somebody this story. Whenever this comes up and somebody talks about Aaron, I always love telling this story. Chris Hero, OVE, Dave and Jake, and Aaron Williams in a four-way. Early days of Rockstar. And after the show, it's the end of the night. Everybody's gone. Locker room's emptied out. Like there's only a couple people still there. We're literally about to turn off the lights and lock up. And Hero pulls me aside, and he's like, "Man, I know, the Christs. I wasn't familiar with Aaron." And he's like, "Man, he's really good." And he like Chris Hero made a point to tell the promoter,
yeah.
"Hey, you got something special here. This guy's really good." And so I just he didn't have to do that. He didn't know Aaron. He didn't know. He was just like, I've never heard of this guy. Man, he's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And Chris Hero's been everywhere, man.
Oh yeah, Chris. And for those who don't know, he was Cassius Ono in briefly in NXT. I don't think he ever got
Yep.
called up, but and that's a waste. That is a total waste of a person right there. Chris Hero was awesome as Chris Hero.
I'm convinced it's because at that stage in his career, he was having trouble keeping his abs tight.
Yeah,
I'm convinced that's all it was.
I
Like
talked to him.
Vince is so obsessed with that. Like if you remember, he was wrestling in a basketball jersey,
Yep.
and I'm like, it's just because he didn't have six-pack abs. Like that guy was so good and could have done amazing things, and just because he didn't have six-pack abs, they didn't want to put him on TV.
Put him
Stupid.
put him back with his old tag team partner, put him back as the Kings of Wrestling again, and old Claudio Castagnoli. So I missed that, but oh yeah, but I asked Chris Hero, and I was like, dude, is it true? And he goes, I was like, I heard that you ended up leaving WWE because you like McDonald's too much. He's like, I'm not gonna say it's not. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna press anymore, man. And it's gotta suck because if you're on the road, especially them indie guys, man, you're gonna be eating garbage food.
Yeah,
And
you gotta watch every calorie, and you gotta if you if you want to take it to that level, like I always would tell the young kids, I'm like, you have to eat, sleep, breathe. Like if you don't completely 100% commit, like, like I remember watching, like an Ace Austin, like that kid is shredded, but he lives in the gym. He was one of those guys that built a home gym over COVID. He counts every calorie and watches everything he eats, and that's why he, has those ridiculous
Oh,
quads, and that's why he has that 8 pack.
although I got a little cocky a while back, man. I had a good gym day. So I like pulled off my shirt in the gym. I'm like shredded. My arms are all jacked and shit. And I'm like, all right, man, I'm gonna do the gym picture for Tina. So I took a picture, sent it to Tina. What do? I get sicker than hell the next day. I'm like, I'm like, I had to get cocky. Damn it! Why did I have to show my like the one person? And she has the one and only photo as far as I know, because I even deleted it off my phone. Because I'm like, yeah, I feel good, man. I'm like, fucking, I had my abs were all popped and everything. I'm like, sweet. Next day, I'm like,
At the height of my wrestling career, when I was working out all the time and in the best shape of my life, I had a mean 4 pack. Never had a 6 pack because that bottom layer had a layer of a Taco Bell over it.
well, you do have for those you're vegetarian,
Yeah,
right? Still vegetarian? Okay, I didn't know if you'd swapped over to vegan yet or not, but yeah.
I had gone vegan a couple times throughout my life. It was being in a band, man. Like it's so hard to eat. We were just talking about
Oh,
this. It's so hard to eat
yep.
right on the road anyway. And I remember we were in the middle of nowhere, like Kansas, somewhere I don't even know. And I was starving. We just pulled into a truck stop and got a grilled cheese because I was just tired of not being able to eat anything. Especially back then, man,
Oh,
because nowadays it's much easier. There's a lot, like everybody has a veggie burger now. Like
yeah.
there's more vegetarian options out there now. But it's funny, I just recently I saw Taco Bell has a commercial totally marketed to me.
Yep.
Like there's a commercial of like dudes in a band saying like it's cheap and there's vegetarian option. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my life.
They're marketing. Oh
Like
man,
I don't eat fast food except for Taco Bell, which I probably eat too much because
my,
it's cheap and it's vegetarian friendly.
my big weakness I need to get away from just because it's convenient is I get a chicken wrap from Speedway. And
Gas station food.
well, it is cooked there, and I know it's processed chicken, but it's one of the few things I can eat that doesn't like fast food that doesn't kill me, my stomach. Because if I eat fast food, I'm dead. I feel like crap the rest of the day. I made a mistake of we were going all the way up to Monroe, Michigan, to go to I don't know, like Horror Slam or something like that. And we're like, oh, there's a place to eat not far from it. We go to the place to eat, it's gone, closed. Like crap. So we're like driving around and we're like getting close to like downtime. And I'm like, dude, I'm starved. I gotta eat something. So he's like, well, I know there. I'm like, he goes, there's a Burger King up here. And I'm like, all right, I haven't eaten a Burger King in like a decade at this point. I was like, but I used to love their double cheeseburgers. Hell with it. We'll go with that. And then I ate a double cheeseburger. And then the rest of the night, I'm like, oh, why'd I eat that? Oh, it's so gross. Oh, I should have just drank water and just said the hell with it. But yeah, it sucks when you go from eating. I traveled a lot like you. You toured. I did conventions all the time, so I ate like garbage food. And then I don't know, geez, a few years back, I decided to get healthy, and Tina started getting healthy, and we started eating better. And next thing you know, I lost. Oh geez, I think maybe the last time you saw me in person, I was closing in on 250 pounds. And now I fluctuate between 165 and 170. So
Congrats.
shit ton of weight. And it was all because I decided one day I was like, I can't keep up with Vincent. I'm tired of eating and feeling like crap. So I got healthy. And then now I'm where I'm at. So and I like the gym, which is something I never thought I would say ever in my entire life.
I've always hated the gym. I've always hated working out. Even when I was wrestling, like cardio and that kind
Uh,
of stuff was my big thing. I was never, I mean, I was a little cruiserweight guy. I wasn't,
yeah.
trying to get big. I was just trying to be fit. So, yeah, I've never liked the gym. I've never liked to sweat. And, but it was necessary.
Yeah.
So, like, after I got hurt and I wasn't actively wrestling anymore, like, my workout routine has gone to hell. But not really a drinker. I eat pretty well, so I've managed to, stay in decent shape. And you talk about like we're knocking on 50. I'm in my late 40s now. I'm approaching 50 and still in halfway decent shape, so I'll take
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah, that's what it is, man. Because I have still have people like, "You're how old?" I'm like, "I'll be 50 in June." They're like, "Excuse me?" I'm like, "Good genes, I guess." I don't know. I look on the
It's just
outside.
not letting yourself go to hell. You know what I mean? Like so many people just stop moving, stop exercising, eat like crap.
Oh
It's
yeah.
real easy to let yourself go, but then it's real hard to get it back once you're at that point.
Well, I'm next month. I'll be sober for. I haven't had a drop to drink in a decade, so I've changed a lot.
Yeah,
Shit.
I'm very lucky that like working in clubs and playing in bands and like I've always been surrounded by alcohol, so I've seen people at their worst making terrible decisions and wrecking their relationships and losing jobs and whatever. So I've never been a big drinker. And so like I've had friends say things to me like, I've never seen you like wasted drunk. And I'm like, because why would I want to be like that in public? Like,
Oh yeah.
and being in a band, at the end of the night, there's probably going to be some shady promoter or some shady bar owner trying to screw me.
So you
So
want to
at
be
10
sober to
a.m.,
deal with that?
I want to be able to do math.
Yeah.
I want to be able to break it down and go, okay, what were you charging? How many people paid? What do you pay the sound man? Okay, and like, so yeah, you get wasted and I don't know. So I've just been fortunate that I never really drank a lot. So as I got older, like I pretty much only drink now when I'm playing a show and it's like as a support the bar kind of thing.
Yeah. Get
It's
like a
like,
beer
hey,
or
I'm going
two.
to buy a beer just as thank you for putting on rock shows, just give a little money back to the bar. Most of the time I'm drinking sugar-free Red Bull.
Yeah, I drink tons and tons of tea and sugar-free energy drinks. That's my go-to. So, but talking about, you you've been on both ends. You've been a promoter and you've also been the one as, a wrestler wrestling for other promotions and stuff like that. Did you find it easier going from that world to being a promoter, to be able to be a good promoter, to be able to, not, because wrestling promoters all have shady, um, they're not all shady, but every one of them has that reputation because you're a
Because they're
wrestling.
all part carny.
Yeah.
There's so much carny culture and
Oh, yeah.
everybody's constantly working. And people are trying to work everybody, and you never know what's a work and what's real, even backstage in so-called real life. And it's just like that's the one frustrating thing is like it's like don't like when you're not on screen, when you're not in the ring under the lights in front of an audience, when you're backstage with the boys, like don't try to work people. Don't try. Yeah, I don't know. That stuff drives me crazy.
There was one time, and I'm to this day, I'm still not sure if it's a work or not, or if it's a shoot. Was we're the whole show had ended. Where there's 90% of the people are gone. Literally, the only reason I'm still there is I think I'm talking to you or Isaac or Aaron or somebody. And God, I want to think it was Zach and somebody else get into a argument, and Aaron basically gets Zach on the ground in like a sleeper hold, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Was that a work? Is it we're all trying to figure out what the hell it is because we're at a wrestling show. You don't know. These guys could totally. and hated each other and been in a real fight, and you'd be like, "Oh, it's work. It's work. These guys aren't really fighting. It's the end of the day." But then you're like, "There's nobody here to see this." So, is it a shoot? I don't know.
Yeah, I just saw some interview clip of Triple H talking about like internet fans getting mad about something, and and it's just like enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the
You
ride.
know, you're on the
100%.
ride.
Yeah.
And sometimes like it's funny when like long time diehard wrestling fans, and sometimes people who have even worked in the business, and they get so like bent out of shape about things, and it's like you're on the ride, like you're getting worked.
See, I want to go back to Jim Cornette on this one. Jim Cornette talking about the whole John Murray thing. I looked at him as like, I've seen Smoky Mountain Wrestling, dude. I've watched it before. You've had a lot of goofy ass characters in Smoky Mountain. I'm just saying. For the guy who takes and don't get me wrong, I certain things Jim Cornette says I 100% agree with. Other things you're just like, just
Hey, he totally shit on Rockstar, and I'm still a fan of the podcast. I
yeah.
still find him hilarious, whether I agree with his points or not. Like he's funny.
Oh yeah.
I grew up watching him, be that, you know, prissy mama's boy, rich kid that, that spoiled, entitled brat that you just want to smack him. Like he was so good at
Yeah.
being that
Oh,
jerk.
it's one of them guys that man, we, we were talking about this the other day on people that you absolutely despised, and Jeremiah. I don't know old dude for his real anything about his real life. He could be one of the nicest dude. He's never been rude to me or nothing.
That dude.
Fucking hated him, and because and I'm like, that's what I'm
Character
supposed to do. He's a
ring
heel.
work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, because I don't know. Jeremiah is one of my favorite success stories of Rockstar, because everybody in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana area knows how good Aaron Williams is.
Mhm.
Aaron Williams is that guy that everybody in the region has always said, "Oh, he should have a contract. Oh, that guy should be on TV." Like Jeremiah didn't have the look,
No.
wasn't necessarily a high flyer, but he could do some high flying stuff. Wasn't a big guy, but he was a brawler. He was just that like versatile,
He's a
you
utility guy.
know. Yeah, he's that five tool player that can
Yeah.
kind of do a little of anything. And he just was always reliable, and he always showed up. And at first, the fans didn't give a crap. And I think a lot of people were like you. They're like, who's this guy?
Oh yeah.
And then over time, Bad Dudes got over by just putting on banger matches.
Yeah. But like I
And
said,
Jeremiah ended up being our champion because he got heat and he put on great matches.
yeah, it was one of the ones where you're just like, I what I hate this guy, I hate this wrestler, and then you're like, dude could been one of the nicest guys I ever met, and it's one of the ones where I used to hate Dustin Ray's, and I liked him when he was tag team with Aaron, but as a single, I was not a fan, and I was like, oh, no. And then I got to know him because ironically enough, he ended up being like my veteran guy. So I would
Oh
run
yeah.
into him all the time locally, and he's literally hung out in my shop one day. We were trying to figure out some shit, and he was there for probably 2 hours. All we did was talk the entire time because he's waiting on the phone. And we had really good conversations, and we were talking about that. I was like, dude, and he goes, "Well, I'm a heel. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to like me." And I'm like, "Yeah, hell yeah." And it's the cool part about Rockstar is that you were able to get up close and personal with so many of the wrestlers, and it sucks now because they're not a tag team. They don't even like each other anymore. But LAX, Santana and Ortiz before they went off to AEW. I remember them at Rockstar, and I'm sitting there talking to them, and I can't remember which one it was, but this lady is just yelling at him, just yelling at him, and it's all racist shit, whatever, because you'll get that. And all of a sudden, he just turns around and goes, "I got nothing but love for you, baby." And he does that, and the woman gets madder, and I'm like, "That's a fucking great heel right there, man. It's like the fact that he can just go, I got nothing but love for you, baby. Like that, and it just made it worse. And you're just like, that is heel work right there. That is brilliant. You know your market, go with it. But oh, it's no. I gotta ask, since you don't have you're not doing this anymore. Did you have say in whether or not they were heel or face, or did you just go with?
Yes, and again, a lot of it's organic. A lot of it's you just kind of like right when somebody first comes in, like, okay, what are you usually do? Where, wherever you. Sometimes we've seen somebody work somewhere as a heel or a face, so we bring them in as whatever we know them as. And then sometimes, especially with like newer, younger guys, if they're not established and our crowd doesn't know them, sometimes it's just like we're kind of heel heavy. We need a baby face. You're gonna be a baby face. So sometimes it's just that. Sometimes you look at the roster and you're like, ooh, we're kind of light on baby faces, or we're kind of heavy on baby faces, and then it's just so much of it's organic, so much of it like a really good, really cool heel will end up getting a babyface reaction over time because if they're just really good at their job. And then there's other times that guys that you think are a baby face, but for whatever reason, and it could, sometimes it's just their look, sometimes it's whatever, but the audience just rejects them. It just decides they don't like them. So run with it and make them a heel.
Oh yeah. Well, the one that always threw me, and I don't know how much say you had in this, but you had John Murray and Bruce Gray as a tag team in Dayton, and I want to say Lima, they were feuding. Did you ever run into problems where you kind of had to like
Uh,
make corrections?
some if it's really, really well known, you know what I mean? Like if it, but like a lot of times, there are those handful of diehard fans that travel all
Yeah.
over and go to different indie shows. But for the most part, if it's an hour or two away, it's a completely different audience. And we do, and plus, you can't always, like, if you have a long term plan and you're working towards something and you're planning on these guys are going to fight at this next pay per view, and it's like, oh, well, so and so is doing this at this other. Well, we can't change our plans. You know what I mean? We're going forward with what we had in mind.
Yeah. See,
So,
I was wondering about that because there was a lot of you know other promotions, and some of your guys were in still wrestling at Rockstar, but had gone on to Impact or were wrestling in Ring of Honor or CZW and whatnot. And I always wondered if you had to like adjust your I've got to make this correction over here because they're
and
or
here's an industry secret for you. Sometimes you make the correction in the middle of the match. Seriously. Like I've had that happen where so do you remember Brutally Handsome? You remember that tag team?
uh, it sounds
Early days of Rockstar. You might not have even been coming yet. I don't know. So at a different Fed in the area, Chad and I, Punk Rock Rebellion, had the tag titles at this Fed, and Chad, uh, the story was that he was out injured, but truth be told, he was getting married, and he was just didn't want to have black eye or anything in his wedding photo, so he took some time off leading up to the wedding. That's what the real story was. But so we couldn't defend the belts. So me and Ben Chimera teamed together and we became Detroit Rock City and we defended the titles and we were going out. I can't even remember. It was Hamilton or one of those towns down there. But Donnie Red from Brutally Handsome's family was all there. Like there was people cheering and like they make their entrance. And Ben and I are still behind the curtain and we're listening to the reaction. And we're like, man, it's a light crowd and it's like all his family. Like he's the babyface tonight. And we literally, as we made our entrance, we looked disgusted and talked a bunch of shit on the way to the ring. And then we get in the ring and walk around like switch roles. You're the face. This crowd loves you. And you roll with it, and and sometimes that might happen in the middle of the match where like you hear the crowd is reacting differently and like, all right, we're going to call an audible and we're going to change plans because, you know, we want that crowd reaction. And it's like, well, if they're giving us this energy, let's go with it. But yeah, there's been a few times that we've called an audible and we're, you know, we'll change the finish in the middle of a match based on like how the crowd's reacting to something. Um, we always had a booking committee. I tried to have as little to do with it as possible. I tried to be the promotion guy. I ran the social media. I made sure we had the posters made. I did all that kind of stuff. And I tried to stay out of the office because everybody's egos and fights. And yeah, at one point, Jake Christ was our kind of head booker. And, you know, different intervals, different people were on the booking committee. But it was basically uh, Chad would kind of oversee big picture and he would kind of look at like our budget and our guest stars and oh this agent hit us up, I think we're going to bring in this legend on this date and we're going to bring in this New Japan guy on this date and we're going to bring in this guy from Mexico on this date, and we're kind of building and planning the cards around you know, guest stars and title matches, and then maybe you get an angle that just suddenly gets hot and like the remember towards the end when we were on Water Valite, Mannix and Lord Crew had like a best of 7 series, and it was just a random one night. It was literally like it could have flipped a coin. We're just going down the roster and filling the card, and it was just a random booking, and they had a chemistry and they hit real hard, and we were like, man, there's something there. And then it ended up having like a best of 7 series. So sometimes it is just a random thing happens and there's magic, there's lightning in a bottle, and then you know, other times, like I said, you know, you have a game plan, but you adjust because the crowd isn't quite reacting the way you want them to, and you're like, well, they're treating this guy like a babyface, so you know they want him to be a babyface. Maybe he's got to be a babyface. So yeah, there's a lot of, you know, you can't fight the audience, you know, and
Yeah.
the trick in wrestling is give the audience what they want, but don't always give it to them when and how they're expecting it.
There you yeah. Well, it's I for lack of a better term, I guess you don't want your audience to hijack the show to basically control your show so that they're the ones that decide make all the decisions because they're like, you know, because you got to surprise people. You can't, you know, do it every time, you know. You can like, okay, I can hear this guy but really for a, you know, a wrestler over here, B wrestlers getting booed, and then you're like, oh, man, they're really feeling this. I want that guy to get heat. I want that guy to have heat bad. So you're going over, you're going over. He's going to, you know, whatever, make it shake.
Sometimes it's easy. You know, sometimes if you've got like a white hot baby face, it's like, well, there you go. You wrestle that guy, you're automatically the heel because the crowd loves him. You know what I mean? So like sometimes it's easy, sometimes you have to work at it, but it's similar. I always make up parallels between the wrestling business and the music business, right? And like both of them, you practice to put in time to master your craft, and then you get out and perform and you get screwed over by shady promoters and you have terrible gigs and you perform in front of nobody, but you just keep trying to master your craft and keep trying to get your name out, and you get good enough that the gigs start getting better and you start performing in front of bigger crowds and you start making more money. And so there's so many parallels like that, but and putting together a match or a card is sometimes like putting together an album or a set list, you know, and you want to have that flow and you want to have those peaks and valleys, and you want to surprise people, and then you also want moments that you just send them home happy. You know, give them the hits.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, you always had a good like pay-per-view show, I guess for you guys. It was your pay-per-views. Your
Internet pay-per-view, I
internet
pay-per-view.
pay-per-views, your pay-per-views. Um Ludus was fun because that was all just super random guys from like nowhere who would travel in, and we would go watch these guys, and some of them I never saw again. Some of them
So,
I
so
Never seen
was our, it was our now like Ring of Honor to
it. Yeah.
AEW or our NXT to WWE. It was we would get so much talent would contact us, and sometimes there'd be really good wrestlers that like, "Well, man, we'd like to bring that guy in, but nobody knows who he is. Our audience isn't familiar with him. He's
No.
not going to draw any extra people. If we put his name on a flyer, it's not going to, you know." So it's always hard, like telling guys, like, well, we just don't have a spot for you. If you're willing to come in and work cheaper, if you're willing to come in and work on a Wednesday and work this Ludus show that we had done, our, for those who don't know, it was like our training show. And
Yeah.
so we would bring in, we'd have talent from all over Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York that wanted to come through, and we're just like, I just can't afford to bring you in right now. And then we're like, well, we have this show. If you can come in, like it's literally come in and get over. And if you remember, we used to do like live audience reaction
Yeah.
every once in a while, especially if you had a heel that the crowd really hated. Sometimes the crowd would boo somebody and we'd still end up bringing them back. But for the most part, it was 80-90% shoot. And it was literally like, come out and win over our audience. And after the match, I would go out and ask the crowd, and we
Yeah.
would
I
have the
remember those.
vote.
Yeah.
And, and like I said, there were some times that like, the crowd's shitting on him because they don't like his character or whatever, and we'd give him another chance. But it was literally like, come into Ludus and get over. That was so many times that like young rookies would come up to me and like ask me like, well, what do you want me to do out there? And my same advice every time: go get over.
Get over. Yeah.
Get over. I don't care if it's comedy. I don't care if it's hardcore. I don't care if it's high flying, lucha libre, brawling, if it's more mic work and character work, or if it's more mat in ring work. Just go out there and pop the crowd. Get the crowd invested in you, and then we'll keep booking you.
Now, I got to ask this one because me and Tina were just talking about this the other day with, insurance and stuff like that. And the fact that now I have to travel, like I said, over to Michigan or over to Indiana to see death matches and stuff. Did you ever run into any problems with any matches? Because I remember, I want to say JD and Zach did that match, and there was blood everywhere. Literally, there's pools of it on the floor. Like you're trying not to step in it. He's bald head is all bleeding. He's got a towel on his head, like signing autographs and taking pictures. Zach's all busted up, got that white shirt on. It's completely red by the end of the show. Did you ever have any problems with dealing with any of those matches or anything?
No, we always had a triage set up backstage.
Yeah.
Like we always had a thing set up to clean people up and sew people up after that kind of match. And we did have a couple different like nurses and things that were our friends that we would bring in to legit be a nurse if something happened. But yeah, we're lucky that the hooligan leg shattering moment was like the worst thing that ever happened. Like it's funny, the hardcore matches, it never fails, man. Like those guys do crazy, crazy, insane things with barbed wire and thumbtacks and glass, and they get some cuts and scrapes, but they're fine. It's always the dumbest thing that you usually don't even see how guys get legit hurt. It's always like the dumbest thing where like a board in the ring is uneven and you twist your ankle. There's always like the weirdest things.
I think was it C Dub told me he was doing a he had the guy broke his ankle, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
He was doing the Ryback gimmick. He was doing it as a smartass to make fun of it. And he's got the dude on his shoulders. He starts doing the march, and literally it was an uneven board. And I think he like rolled his ankle, something, and he fell and collapsed. And he rolled out of the ring and was just screaming, "My ankle's broke." And we're like, "Oh shit!" And live audience on with the show. And I remember when we got him backstage, it was so gnarly. It was what do they call that? Compound fracture, when the bones like sticking out
Oh yeah.
through the skin, and his foot's just dangling, like barely connected, right? Ugh, it was gnarly.
Yeah.
And then now he's got a robot foot.
Oh man.
We can
So
rebuild him, make him stronger.
do you guys stay in contact with any of your former wrestlers?
Oh yeah. I randomly will run into guys occasionally around Dayton. But I have tried my best to remain very retired. When TNA was just in Cincinnati last weekend, I was on the road all weekend, and I got back into town on Sunday. Oop,
Um,
sorry, my can you see me?
I can't. I can hear you. I can't see you.
I don't know what just happened. My screen just went black.
Yeah, it just went black here. All I see is GeeGee.
Let me see what in the world is going on.
Yeah, I'm.
Edit this out when you.
Yeah, there's no problem. I'll do that Sunday. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do Sunday because I go to the gym in the morning, but I have an interview from Berlin at they said 11 o'clock. So I'm like, oh, maybe I can do this, go to the gym later since it's a Sunday and I don't have to get up. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. My screen went black, and there were all these prompts, and so I've scrolled through everything. We're back.
Better than what I did an interview for the Talk and Roll show, and literally we ended it because we're in the middle, and their cat knocked over the camera, and so we just
Yeah, I don't
ended
know
it
what
right
happened.
there.
Some bubble came up telling me to do this, that, or the other, and I'm like trying to swipe there. I'm like, no, get me back to the camera.
All right, let's see. Put it here.
Edit.
Edit here.
What
Okay.
were we talking about before my camera?
If you still stay in contact with anybody,
Yes. So the power of social media, like
yeah,
I'm still
yeah, you were
Facebook
talking
friends
about.
with everybody, and randomly we'll just give everybody a shout out. And it's funny. Like I used to have to promote our shows and post about Rockstar so much, and now like I don't ever post anything about wrestling except for two reasons: to give old legends their flowers. Sadly, sometimes it's eulogizing them,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's like, oh, somebody just had their 67th birthday, and I'll just post some little thing to put them over, like, my favorite wrestlers when I was a kid kind of thing. Or to put over and give flowers to our Rockstar boys that are doing big things, and I'll just like post something like, hey, Lord Cruz in Japan, and hey, watch these guys on TNA this weekend, and hey, go watch Lil Billy on Ring of Honor. Like how great is it to see Mouse's daughter like conquering the world? Like when she was a little girl, Billy started a little girl, like teeny bopper, not old enough to train, and she wanted to train so bad, and we wouldn't train her until she was 18, and we kept telling her, come back when you're 18, come back when you're 18. So she went somewhere, I don't know, Indiana, Kentucky, but she started training at 16, and yeah, just this little kid that her dad was a wrestling photographer. She was always just kind of hanging out backstage, helping him carry photography equipment, helping him set up lights, picking all the wrestlers' brains and like asking them questions. And, now she's Ring of Honor, like what is it, women's TV champion or whatever title she has there.
Yeah, it's nuts. But oh, you're talking about TNA down in Cincinnati.
Oh, uh, yeah, but I was just saying how I've been very retired, like
Yeah,
very just avoiding wrestling. I haven't gone to any wrestling shows, haven't like just I don't want to be in the audience and have like local Ohio wrestling fans recognize me and ask me, when's Rockstar coming back? When's Rockstar coming back? I get that on social media so much. I'm like, it's been a couple years, guys. Like, if suddenly we have a windfall of cash and are able to like do it, maybe, but it's probably not gonna happen at this point. I have no interest in ever getting back in the wrestling business at all. I mean, I'm not interested. If I was offered a job doing like some kind of backstage production, something, something, something for one of the bigger companies where they could actually pay me a real salary. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Let the young kids that are like trying to make it, let them fight for those jobs that pay nothing.
okay.
So TNA wrestling being in Cincy this past weekend, I was on the road and got back Sunday, and I was like, man, I was like really debating going just because I hadn't been to a live wrestling show since we shut down. And I hadn't seen a lot of the boys in person, talk on social media, but just randomly run into people like uh Lord Crew recently came into my store. Uh recently ran into Crash Jackson at Kroger. It's just like random stuff like that. But yeah, I was thinking about going just to like say hi, and I'm just like, one of these days I'll make it out to a Revolver show or something just to like see people I haven't seen face to face since the pandemic. But yeah, I'm very happy to no longer have to stress out about that stuff. Over the pandemic, losing Rockstar, like leading up to that period, like I was burnout, man. Like I had gotten to the point where I hated wrestling. Yeah, I was like Dango, like I hate pro wrestling. Like I it just became work.
Mhm.
And I'm doing like my 40-hour a week job and then being at the venue every night for wrestling or concerts or whatever. And I was getting real fried. And I had stopped paying any attention to WWE or anything else because I just couldn't keep up on everything. So over the pandemic, when we're not running shows and there's nothing to do and everything's closed down and binge watching crap on TV is all we got, I was able to kind of like become a fan again. I was able to just kind of like enjoy wrestling again without like having to run around and make sure these people are on their times and make sure this person comes out when they're supposed to and make sure this happens and make sure this right music gets played. And then the last like year we were running after we moved to Water Elite, uh we had lost one of our announcers and we were trying to figure out who would do commentary, and it was Ron Mathis. Just like spoke up like, GeeGee can talk. He knows everybody's gimmicks. Why doesn't he do? And I was like, you son of a bitch. So I got like volunteered for it. And it wasn't like I want to be an announcer. It was just we needed somebody. And it was, that being a utility player, it was just like, all right, well, I guess I'll announce because we need somebody. And it was funny over COVID, we had some shows in the can. We had the last, I don't know, month or whatever of pay-per-views and weekly TV or whatever that had filmed, but then like the world stopped and everything was just like in the can. And we're like waiting, like, are we going to reopen? Can we start doing shows again? Whatever. And so I forget which one it was. I'm gonna have to go back and see which one it was. One of our monthly pay-per-views, there was an issue with the audio. And so like the audio was unusable. So the live commentary I did in the building, we couldn't use. So I had to go over to Victor's and like put on headphones and redo commentary. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this had to be like the way the old studio wrestling did it. I'm like, I had to like, react, act like I didn't know what was about to happen, act like I didn't already see this and do commentary once.
Well, you talk about the whole industry and stuff like that. I talked with Aaron, and I was like, yeah, a few years ago, I had the chance to buy a ring like dirt cheap. I would have had to go pick it up, and I think near Cleveland, but it was so damn cheap. I almost bought it just because it was so damn cheap. Um, and I was gonna bring it down here. I thought, man, I was like, I was just gonna own. I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna own this. I got a place I could run it, and I can go from there. And I'd have somebody else book it. And I would just be the
You could make money just renting it out to local indie
yeah.
promoters.
And I'm sitting there, and Tina looked at me and went, "No, I've never told you no that you couldn't do something, but I'm going to tell you no." She goes, you keep yourself so busy because I'm not gonna lie. I've told this story. So I was a former alcoholic, so when I got sober and shit, I got to keep myself busy, and not so much anymore because I have no desire. The smell of alcohol fucking turns me off, whatever. But she's like, no. She goes, you're already busy enough. You got the shop, you got the podcast, you got everything that you're doing now. She goes, this is another thing. I was like, no, I don't want to run it. I just want to, own this ring and let somebody else, run the promote. And she goes, yeah, until they do something that you don't want. They're gonna book the wrong person or they're gonna do the wrong match, and you'll be like, no, fuck that, you're gonna stop it. And then you're gonna be there every fucking week. And I told this to Aaron. Aaron goes, do you ever thank your wife? He goes, you should, because that's the best
Saving
advice
you
you
from,
get.
yeah,
He goes,
it's a curse, man.
oh
I'm
man.
lucky that like when I got banged up, like I was able to just walk away.
Mhm.
I was just like, I got into this kind of late in life. I accomplished way more than I ever thought I would. I'm a cruiserweight. I was under 6 foot, under 200 pounds, over 30. Like, I didn't have any delusions of grandeur. I didn't
Mhm.
think I was going to make it to WWE. I loved the business and I
Yeah.
wanted to get in the business, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just a thing where like you just have to have that passion and love for it. But after I had gotten to a certain point, I'm like, I won some local regional titles. I saw my name in Pro Wrestling Illustrated a few times. You know, I was happy to just walk away because I could have, I could have very easily booked myself in shitty matches. I could have very easily kept working other feds outside of Rockstar. But like, again, I was just kind of like, I accomplished more than I thought I would. And at Rockstar, particularly, we had set a bar. We had like talent wanted to come work there.
Yeah.
We always had a good roster. We always put on good shows. The guys that came out of our training camp, a lot of them are on national TV now. Like, so we had something really special going on there. And so once I was all banged up and I was just like, man, I can't run like I used to and I can't jump like I used to. And I was like, I'm not going to cheat our fans. Like, they expect
Yeah.
better. And like I said, I probably could have gone to some other local feds where the talent wasn't as good, and I probably could have been their main eventer, but I was just like, I'm good. I'm good.
So I should have asked you this forever ago, and I always wanted to. Um, you had the most confusing belt ever, I think, for me, which was your 6-man,
I was gonna say it's got to be the trios title.
the trios title. I still don't understand the rules for the trios title.
It's not as confusing as everybody thought it was, but the confusion is one of the reasons why we dropped it. So the main reason why we dropped it is just because it was really hard to book trios consistently. It was really hard to get a 3-man team to consistently be able to show up and perform as a team, and it was just logistics became tricky.
Mhm.
But in Mexico, trios are really popular.
Yeah,
AEW has a trios title in the past. NWA had a 6-man title.
yeah, I
So
love that. The Freebird
we
show.
had our tag team title, and there were some legal reasons. We had to retire the American Lucha Core title. Basically, long story. Say it as quickly as possible. So, Sammy Callahan ran a promotion called American Lucha Core.
Yeah,
That was his promotion way back in the day, and that was his belt. And he had this sweet belt, so we brought it in as our sort of secondary mid card title.
yeah,
So we had the American Lucha Core title for a real long time, but there was some issue where it was like, I don't even know exactly, but like the guy Sammy started the promotion with or something owned the belt and wanted it. There was a whole convoluted legal thing, and we were like, who cares? We're not going to pay a bunch of money just for that. We'll just make a new mid card title. So that's why Ray Phoenix
yeah,
won and retired. He took it back to Mexico. That was the story. Uh, and then we were going to replace it. And then Jake came up with this idea of like, well, what if we marry the mid card title with the tag title? So they're still two separate titles. They're the mid card title, which was the American Lucha Core title. It became the captain's title
yeah,
uh, because it was the captain of the trio. The tag team champions and the mid card champion were together trios champions. And the rule was they could defend their tag and the captain's title individually, separately, or they could defend all of it as a trio. So if they lost as a trio, all of them lost their title. But if the tag champs lost the tag titles, the captain now leads a new trio. And so that was the thing. And we thought that could create drama and that could create some strange bedfellows. And, oh, this captain won, but he doesn't like the tag champions. And now they got to work together as a trio. So it just, it ended up being it was almost like Vince Russo, like it was just kind of like this convoluted, like you said, you to this day you're like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
People were so confused by it, and so after a few months we just retired it, we separated them. The tag titles continued on as the tag titles, and the mid-card title became the Amped Championship.
Now, whatever happened to all the Rockstar stuff? Is it? Do you guys still own it? Did whoever was the last
Yeah,
person?
yeah, yeah. We still have everything. We have the belts. We have the ring. We have Chad has all of that stuff. Uh, I believe the last champions are still actually in possession of the belt. I'm pretty sure Bad Dudes still have the physical belts, and I'm pretty sure Jake Chris still has the physical belt. Um, but yeah, again, we know all those guys. If we ever started running again, we'd be like, all right, come defend the titles. But who knows if that'll ever happen. So yeah, so Bad Dudes probably like get drunk and do beer bongs or something wearing the belts. Who knows?
That creepy shit, like
Towards the end, when towards the end when Bad Dudes were huge baby faces,
Mhm.
when they finally like got over and the fans loved them as a
Oh yeah.
team, that run was Bad Dudes in real life backstage. Like those guys, they're just fun dudes who just want to drink beer and have a good time.
Oh, Pompano Joe. I, I know his real name, and I can't think off the top of my head. Um, but
Tim Vanilli.
yeah, the, he was always such a cool, laid back dude, and you would never, you know, I always thought he was more of a rock star jobber or enhancement talent. But man, when he did the whole bad dudes thing, you're like, okay, there's more to this dude than the
Yeah, he's like I talked about with Jeremiah being like a great in-ring performer, like same with Joe, because he didn't have the right look or the right gimmick or whatever, like for whatever reason, like he wasn't clicking with our fans for a while. And then that led to the Home Alone video and that whole, do you remember that whole thing with like Homie Alone when
yeah.
we went on vacation and left so that whole silly stupid thing that we filmed, uh that whole thing was playing off the like the fans don't get it, they don't respect Joe, like they don't, for whatever reason they saw him as like a jobber or
Yeah.
whatever, but all of us backstage knew like, man, he can really go in the ring. Like you can rely on him to give you a banger match, and he's one of those versatile dudes that you can just run out there and put him out there with anybody, and he'll have a good match. And then when Bad Dudes started teaming, and then they were just having killer matches against everybody, whether it was, OVE or the Rascals or some guests we brought in or the Dirty or what, I mean, they were just putting on great matches. And then over time, like they never changed their gimmick. They never changed who they were. They never, you know what I mean? Just the fans just finally, it was like the slow clap. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like after putting in the work for a few years, the fans finally went,
They're like,
yes, you guys are good.
yeah. Well, the other day it threw me because I'm literally on Facebook and I'm at the shop and I'm kind of putting stuff up and I look and I'm like, huh, bad dudes are back together. Huh, they're in Huber Heights. Part of me is like, then I looked what day it was. I'm like, oh shit, I can't make it. And so I'm like, fucking, I was gonna go. So like Huber's like 30 minutes away. I could be there and yeah, they're like 25 minutes. Um, but it was one of the ones where I'm like, and because we looked at and it's it's all old rock star guys for the most part, and you're like, could I go back there and could it feel the same? But it probably won't feel the same because it's not the same. But it's
Well, I mean, there was a certain magic
oh
that
yeah,
we
like I said,
just
lightning in a bottle.
the
You guys,
time and that, for the first like 7 years or whatever, that warehouse space just when we painted it black and got the lighting right and we had the big screen, and when you came in for a pay-per-view and the lights went down and the big screen came up and it had that big fight
yeah,
feel, and like we had something really special. And from the legends that we brought in and lucha or pure wrestling talent we brought in, And yeah, we just, like I said, we just had lightning in a bottle. We had something really special that we'll never be able to replicate. But I'm really happy that, Revolver has kind of picked up that torch and, keeps running. Like, obviously they're not weekly or even monthly in Dayton, but the fact that they're still putting on probably the best indie wrestling shows in the area. And now Armbar,
Yeah.
brand new promotion, but like you said, it's a lot of the Rockstar talent, and the people involved in that are all good, and they're all veterans, and they all care. So I'm looking forward to keeping an eye on that promotion. If they stick around, I think they're going to do good things.
No.
And then you still see like DD Trash and Ganger and whoever working around the local feds. And
Uh, I run into Big Jim all the time. I mean, because he lives in Covington, I think, and I'll run into him at Kroger's and at the gym. I'm like, "Hey, Big Jim, what's up? How's it going?"
Big Jim is like, there's a certain generation of Ohio wrestlers that Big Jim is their wrestling dad.
Yeah,
Like, he is one of those guys, like Aaron. Like, he's just one of those guys that's so good. If you can't have a good match with Big Jim, stop. Like, and he was that guy that we could always rely on. Like, hey, we got this new young guy, Jim. Go out there and pull a good match out of him, and he would with anybody. And a great heel.
oh yeah.
And
I
just
remember, was it Mr.
that's
Reality Check?
the
Was
most simple thing ever. Like, the most old school, classic, generic wrestling thing ever. And he got it over. And the fans would chant along with him, "Shut your mouth."
Yep.
Like, only Jim could get like a generic 1970s wrestling promo over.
God. I'm. It's so weird since Rockstar disappeared, and I don't. Literally, I haven't even been to wrestling here in Piqua, like since forever ago. And I go, like I said, I've gone over to Indiana. I usually go up to Michigan, but I'm always kind of wondered because like after Rockstar disappeared, I stopped seeing these guys wrestle. Like you were talking about wrestling with Benjamin Chimera, and I was like, whatever happened to him? The Ugly Ducklings. I don't know whatever happened to those guys. A lot of guys just disappeared off the radar after
It's only
Rockstar.
Ugly Ducklings have been busy and active, and it's just because they're from down south. They're from the Carolinas,
Okay.
so you don't see them up in Ohio as often. But because I'm still Facebook friends with everybody, I kind of keep up on what everybody's doing. You remember the Gym Nasty Boys?
Yeah.
White Mike. Okay, so the Gym Nasty Boys and the Ugly Ducklings had a long rivalry. They wrestled each other at Rockstar. They wrestled each
Yeah.
other all over the country. Well, after you have a long rivalry with somebody, you make good teammates. So White Mike from the Gym Nasty Boys has been teaming with one half of the Ugly Ducklings as the Ugly Sucklings. And again, just great, talented dudes that can put on banger matches. And
We talk about big guys that could wrestle. Was it White Mike and Timmy Lou Retton? Right?
yeah,
Those
and
guys.
neither one of them are that big now. Both of them have lost a ton of weight.
Jeez, now it's gonna be weird seeing them. If you're, but like
Both of them are like svelte and wrestling in trunks now.
they always wore the onesie or the not the not the one
Singlets.
singlets. Fucking onesies are for babies, singlets are for for adults. But yeah, like those guys, and a lot of people just, I don't know, was when Rockstar ended, they just like, oh, Ohio, because I mean, the rumor was for a while that Ohio was dead for wrestling after Rockstar disappeared, after some shit happened, which we're not gonna talk about, but it was literally like, rumor was like a lot of Ohio wrestling was dead.
Yeah. I never thought that. I never was worried about it. Like, once the pandemic kind of wound down and people were getting vaccinated and businesses were opening back up, and like once the world started spinning again, the first time Sammy threw a Revolver show at the fairgrounds, I went, okay, good. Glad that he's picking that up and keeping it going. And then, like I said, we just saw Armbar just sprouted up.
Yeah.
And, and like I said, there's even, what's that, XVW and Little Feds around
Yeah.
the area. Like, there's still local indie wrestling. I knew War up in Lima still
Yeah.
running. Uh, yeah, so it's like I knew somebody would keep it going. See, the problem is weeding out the crap. Like, there's always a lot of garbage on the indie wrestling. There's always a lot of weekend warrior guys who want to play wrestler, but they don't want to hit the gym and they don't want to invest in pro looking gear and they don't want to spend the time training to really get good at it. And so those shows, you pay to get in and there's like, oh boy, you paid to see DD Trash and boy, the rest of the card sucks. It's like there's a lot of shows like that where like there's one or two really good talents on the card, and then there's a lot of like, ugh, ugh. So at least with like Revolver and Armbar, and at least there's like a bar, there's like that it's going to be a well produced, well put together show with good talent.
Yeah, because to be honest, I have not been to Revolver since they left downtown Dayton at the Bright Side or
Oh yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
a couple times, and then they moved out to the fairgrounds.
yeah,
Yeah.
have not. I got the worst part about it is I was supposed to go to I had tickets. Then of course pandemic hit. Then they gave us our tickets back for the thing. Well, I couldn't go by that point. I had shit going on that I could not go away from. I had a convention. So I was like, I can either A, make money or lose money. So we're going to make money. And so I made money that day. So I ended up giving my tickets to one of the guys who used to come to wrestling with us. And, them guys kind of all, when Rockstar disappeared, they kind of drifted away. Me and my buddy Matty, who used to be at and my buddy Ed used to be at every Rockstar event that we could get to. I mean, yeah, we couldn't hit Wednesdays because we all had regular jobs up here in Piqua, but every Friday that we could get down there, we were there for every pay-per-view, and when it went away, we just kind of, Brent started going off and he was going to up to Michigan, over to Jersey. He was going to, IWA. He was going to CCW. He was going to, the King of the Death matches and all that fun stuff all over. But none of us stayed in Dayton. And now, we're slowly going back. And we're all like, man, I miss those days. And we're like looking at our schedules and shit, going, okay, man, we can hit this. Let's try this one. They've all hit Piqua. I can't even hit Piqua because it's on Saturdays. It starts at like 7. I close at 8. So being the big boss that I am, I got to stay till 8.
I feel you. I work in retail.
Oh yeah. So I've been meaning to ask you this for a little while, and just outside, was there ever a wrestler that Rockstar had that you never understood why they never made it past a certain point?
Oh, plenty. We were talking earlier about Aaron. Like, yeah, Aaron is like this Midwest legend. Every indie wrestling fan in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana says, "Oh, Aaron Williams." Why doesn't that guy have a contract? Like, he should at the very least be in Ring of Honor, TNA, something.
The only thing I think Aaron has against him is his knees. And I think that might be the fact. I think that's the only reason it's keeping him out of the majors, So,
I know Lord Crew just did a tour of All Japan. And I know he was backstage at the Impact show, but that doesn't always mean well, no, it was Impact. It's the funny thing, trying to like, oh, they're back to TNA, but the TV show is still Impact.
Yes.
But yeah, he might have just been like I was going to do. He might have just been there to say hi because he's from Cincy, But hopefully it's going to lead to something. He appeared on AEW a few times, appeared on Ring of Honor a few times. So he's like right on that cusp. He's like right on the cusp. Yeah. So I hope to see Lord Crew take that next step to being on TV more regularly. Like I said, for me over the pandemic and everything, TNA has been what I've followed the most because one, okay, yes, the evil empire is over. Yeah, Vince is gone, but fuck Vince, right? Like fuck Vince. Like years ago, back when they had the network, before Peacock and all that stuff, I had enough and said, I'm never giving WWE another dime of my money. And between the Saudi blood money and the Ashley Massaro story And then, all these like sexual misconduct allegations against Vince and other executives. And I was just like, they're fine. They're doing, and now this past year, they're doing like record business. They don't need my money.
No.
They're doing fine. AEW, I will support more. I've got a few friends that work there. And even though they're still also owned by a billionaire and on a major, cable network, they're still smaller than WWE. So I'd rather, promote them. WWE doesn't need my help.
Yeah.
And then TNA is like the little engine that could. And especially the way the wrestling landscape has shaped out the last couple years, TNA is the modern ECW. And
Yeah.
people will tell you, Game Changer or some of these, indies, but they don't have the distribution, they don't have the exposure, they're not as big. So like on a national and international level, obviously WWE is the juggernaut. And then because they had, Jacksonville Jaguar money, AEW came out of nowhere and leapfrogged right over TNA to become the number 2 promotion. And TNA has been struggling. And, when WWE has 1 million to 2 million viewers and AEW has 500,000 to 1 million viewers, and then TNA has a couple 100,000 viewers because they're on a smaller network. But minute by minute, I think they're putting on the best wrestling shows.
Well, I've always thought that yes, Impact, going back to the I mean, just I remember finding AJ Styles back in the day at TNA, and I'm like, where the hell did this guy come from? And I think that
Air Styles for a hot second at the end of WCW.
yeah,
Right before WCW went out of business, he debuted, and then
yeah. Then like what the last episode, wasn't it, or like the week
something
before?
like that.
Like yeah, it was like immediately. Um, you know, those guys. Did TNA drop the ball on some wrestlers? Yes. Okada #1. Fucking made him Kato. Bullshit. But I think it looks like TNA is the fun promotion. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
look, I mean, because and I think me and you had this talk years ago when we would hang out at Rockstar talking about some of the wrestlers. They all had day jobs for the most part. A lot of them did. I can't remember which one you told me. Like, had a freaking job at like I don't know if you told me or somebody else, but she worked at the Sunglass Hut at the mall or something, and was the Knockouts, champion at that time.
Oh, yeah. So her specifically, yeah, she was a Hooters girl, I think, and was like working as a waitress and different stuff, and like appearing on TV as the Knockouts champion, Madison Rain.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
So
she's from Ohio, so.
yeah, I knew she was from Ohio. I didn't know. I forgot it was Madison Rain that we had talked about. But yeah,
But yeah, she was still working like as a waitress, I think, or something, like appearing on TV as the champion. But that's the thing. It's like if you're not making WWE money, you have to supplement your money. That's why guys go to Japan, go to Mexico, do fill their schedule with indie dates. Just, their contract pays them X amount of money and allows them to make a living as a pro wrestler. But depending on where they are on the card, and are they a champion? Are they a top merchandise seller? Are they, so, they go out and do other dates and so a lot of people still, I know for the longest time, Ace Austin was appearing on Impact and still working part-time at a Hot Topic.
yeah. My buddy, because that was he was at Fairfield.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I had a buddy of mine I couldn't remember. He said he was at a mall, and he walks in to Hot Topic, and there's Ace waiting on behind the counter. I'm like, that would be a little throw you off right there. Be
But
like,
because, he's wrestling 2, 3. I mean, if your calendar's really full, maybe 4 nights a week. But most wrestlers are just traveling wrestling on the weekends, and so they just fill the rest of the week with other jobs. That was a nice thing when we had the venue, because we would always need security. We had a bunch of big beefy boys around, so it's always like, "Hey, are you booked somewhere this weekend?" Or, "Hey, you booked Thursday? We got a concert. You want to make some money?" And if the boys weren't wrestling, they'd come and work security for us.
Oh yeah, many a time. Many a time, wrestlers told me to sit down. Uh, because me and my crew would always go, and we'd always sit way back in back, especially after the whole leg incident, because we sat way back in the back, and literally we were like, you could
You
like,
didn't want to get splattered like a Guar show.
yeah, like a Gallagher show. Literally, I could do this and like high five the announce team where we used to sit. That's how close we were to that. And I don't know if they could hear us picking us up on the mics because we'd be annoying as shit in the entire match. And pretty soon, security like, you guys need to sit down. And we're like, that's how we knew that Rockstar was getting big, when we had to actually start setting down for shows instead of stand up like we always did. Uh, because I'm not gonna lie, I fucking hate sitting in folding chairs. I despise it. I'd rather stand up the entire show. But and it's bad now, is because now every time I go to wrestling, Brent buys us tickets and we get front row. And I'm like, oh man. And then we were at a show in I think Monroe. I get Lindsay Snow throws a wrestler at me, and I'm still sitting down. So I'm literally from thigh to calf soaked through with this dude's blood. We're in Michigan. And so we have to drive back from Michigan. And what else is in Michigan besides wrestling? Well, we stopped and picked stuff up while we were there.
I gotcha.
And we're driving back, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to jail. I'm fucking going to jail tonight. I was like, dude, I've got stuff in the trunk. I'm covered in some dude's blood. I'm going to jail. Fucking going to jail. And that's all I could think of the entire ride home. I'm like driving the speed limit, like, no cops, man. I'm like paranoid. I'm like, I'm gonna get pulled over. I'm gonna get pulled over, and I'm gonna have to get out and explain why I'm covered in some dude's blood and stuff in the trunk.
Here's a
And,
great story for you of me covered in blood doing a wrestling show in the Oregon district, and then the same night playing a show at Canal Street afterwards. So I wrestle. It's me and Chad against Ben Chimera and Cody Hawk, the first Oregon district Halloween show we did. And, you know, that madness of the Oregon on
oh
Halloween.
yeah,
So, uh, Chimera and Hawk both got color. Chad got color the hard way. Crazy hardcore match. We finished the match. I literally like finish the match, hop in my car, and drive a couple blocks over to play a show at Canal Street. I come in, and I don't even, you know what I mean? I'm just rushing. All I'm thinking about is get there.
mhm.
And I come in, and everybody at the band's like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good." And they're like, "Is that real? Are you covered in blood?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's not mine. We're good."
It's not mine. You were good.
And I'm like, I'm covered in the blood of two other men, maybe three. And and again, I just, you know, so like heart's racing, cardio, I'd literally just finished the match and hopped in the car and turned around the block. So I'm just like, just trying to get it together. And the singer of the band was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Let's do this."
I, it's, for those that don't know, Canal Street and the Oregon District are not that far apart. I think it would have been hilarious if you'd have walked covered in somebody else's blood over to the canal. It's
If it
Halloween
wasn't
time, man. No one would have really
If it
paid
wasn't
attention.
Halloween, I might have, but like, you know, the streets are blocked
Oh
off and
yeah, yeah,
traffic
yeah.
downtown sucks. So I'm just like, I had my car right behind where we were set up at Cicero Law Office, who sponsored the shows. And like I literally hop in my car, drive around the block to a couple blocks to Canal and go in covered in three other people's blood and play a punk rock show.
That's the most punk rock thing to do, right there. Oh man. Well, I'm gonna have to ask you some last questions because I want to keep you more, because I thought it'd be an hour and we're like an hour 40 now.
Oh shit. Well, it's because we're just having a conversation. It
Oh yeah,
goes
we're just
fast.
talking bullshit. We ain't talked in forever, man. It sucks. We need to like go fucking do something. We need to get like me, you, and Tina and Courtney and go freaking go get some pizza or something. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, hell yeah. So what advice do you have for up and coming wrestlers?
Don't go to
Don't.
school, do something else. No, seriously, just know that you have to live, eat, sleep, breathe it. You can't half-ass it. You can't put one foot in the water. Like there Okay, even if you count the smaller, like not as big a contract gigs, all of WWE, all of AEW, all of TNA, we'll throw in New Japan, whatever, what AAA, some of the big lucha company, whatever, wherever there's a possibility that you can get a job wrestling. There's a few hundred jobs, and there are thousands of people who dream of wanting to be wrestlers. So what's going to make you stand out over any of these dozens of other people trying to make it? So invest in yourself, spend time in the gym, spend time training, because ring cardio is totally different than any other kind of cardio. No other sport, no other thing. You're not running and then slamming yourself to the mat and then running more and then slamming yourself to the mat and then running more. Like ring cardio is a different beast. So just like, spend time in the ring, go to training. So many guys get to a certain point when they have the fundamentals down and they know the basics, and they're like, I don't need to go to training. You should go train like every day. Like you just that repetition, that rhythm, the more you do it, the better you get until it's just effortless and you're not even thinking about it. And then when you get to that level, that's when you make it to the television companies, to New Japan, Mexico, whatever.
Well,
But yeah, you just live, sleep, eat, breathe it. Just spend time in the gym, spend time training, have nice pro looking gear. And even maybe take an acting class or something, get better at public speaking.
this,
It's like all of those things.
oh, well, people don't realize. I don't know if it was you or CW, whatever. One of you guys let me in the ring when we did one of our comic shows down there, and I ran the ropes. And people do not realize how hard it is just to run the ropes, because them hurt.
Elevator cable,
Yeah,
it's steel cable,
yeah.
and the wood, the mat is wood. So it's a steel frame, steel ropes, wooden mat.
And the
And
mat, there is a little what like this much of a cushion, like a half
yeah,
inch.
the padding doesn't really do it.
Yeah,
The padding is just basically there so the lines between the boards don't show and you don't
yeah.
trip over them. Like
Because
that mat doesn't really do a lot.
there is not a trampoline. You're not
People
bouncing.
think it's a trampoline. The spring
Yeah,
is the wood.
yeah,
Like I always tell people, if you put a big piece of wood and walk across
yeah. You're
it,
gonna
it's gonna
bounce.
bow
Yes.
in the middle. And that's what that is. That bounce is two by
Wow,
fours.
dude, it is. I like I said, I was in the ring there. I tried out years ago for wrestling up at I think Al Snow's school back in Lima back in 90. I was out of my apartment. I was at my first apartment, so 94, 95 maybe. And I finished in the top five. They took the top three. So didn't do too bad. I was also the only one smart enough to not eat that day. And I did not throw up once. So I got bonus points for not throwing up for my tryout. Um, but yeah, you don't realize, as I tell people, I was like, I got fucking gorilla slammed by a guy. Oh God, I can't remember what his name was, like Bull or the Bear or something. He was short, squat, bald dude, had no fucking neck, but he literally just picks me up and just drops me. And I've been in car wrecks, and that was one of the worst car wrecks I've had. And that was just a drop off that thing. And I learned how to take in martial arts, you learn how to, fall correctly and stuff like that without hurting yourself. So a lot of that kicked in, and I'm like, I'm still like, I couldn't breathe. None of that. But yeah, well, it is not easy. There it is not even running the ropes and landing is hard because it is not. People think that those are trampolines. They're not trampolines.
That's why wrestlers get so offended when people say fake.
No,
Like wrestlers get mad
predetermined.
and angry because it's like, no, it's entertainment, but it's very physical and
Yeah,
guys get hurt. And like, that's why I say, I'm like, oh, if it was fake, then, why are you going to pay all the medical bills I had? My broken ankle and cracked knee, dislocated kneecap, broken toe, dislocated fingers, cracked rib. I've had so many random things that happen in the ring.
So, all right. Next question. What do you have for up and coming people who want to be wrestling promoters?
Again, if you haven't actually been in the business, it's a weird thing. And perfect example is Tony Khan. It's a rich guy, lifelong wrestling fan, loves wrestling, launches this huge promotion because he has billions of dollars. He's able to get on TV and get a bunch of big stars. But all the things that people complain about, whether it's Jim Cornette or Eric Bischoff or pick your podcast, it's because there's a disconnect because Tony wasn't a wrestler and he didn't spend time in the trenches. He didn't spend time in the business. So he just sort of fantasy books and like, oh, this will be a banger match.
Yeah, we'll be a banger
Well,
match.
okay,
Is
well,
there a
what
story?
happens next week and what
Yeah.
happens the week after that? And it's like we used to plan out like the main events and like the big picture like months in advance, and you try to work your way there. And I don't know, so much of AEW seems like it's booked on the fly. And that's the thing, especially if you're going to run regularly. It's easy to do a spot show. If you run once a year or once every few months, it's easy to put up some posters and say wrestling's in town. But if you're running regularly, like fans expect a certain if they go and the show sucks, they're not going to come back. So for promoters, like I said, I would recommend it's somebody that's actually spent time in the business, has actually been in a ring, knows a little bit about the fundamentals of how the wrestling business works. And if you aren't, partner with somebody who has. Like if you're just a guy with money who loves wrestling and says, hey, I want to buy a ring, I want to start throwing shows, find, you always say like, find the smartest people in the room, find people who know more than you, so you always want to team up with some veterans who have been around and, somebody that isn't just there to take your money, somebody that will tell you when something's a bad idea and something that will call you on bullshit. And we were lucky when we were young kids in the business. We like I said, we were grown ass men, but when we were young in the business and we were inexperienced, and we had guys like Ben Chimera and Cody Hawk, and then eventually Aaron Williams and the Christs and all the different people that came through that had been wrestling for years, and some of them had traveled the world, and so you want to like listen to people who know more than you. And that's for wrestlers too. So many wrestlers, think that they know. And it's like if somebody and on the flip side of that though, don't listen to somebody who says, yeah, I'm a 10-year vet, and they've never traveled more than like an hour from their hometown. You know what I mean? Because there's guys like, yeah, I've been wrestling for yeah, you've been wrestling shitty matches and shitty venues in front of your 20 of your friends. But the people that have been to Japan, that have been to Canada, been to Europe, been to Mexico, got, enhancement spots for WWE, AEW, whatever. Listen to those guys. Listen to people that have been somewhere and done something. Don't listen to the guy running his mouth because he's been a wrestler in his hometown area for however many years.
All right. Well, man, it's been a blast having you on here. I'm gonna hit stop. I want to ask you a couple questions off the air here, but it's blast. Always fun talking to you. Like I said, we've got to go do something, man. Even if it's just to go freaking go to hell. You know what? Fucking we get together and we go to armbar show or something. Go visit everybody.
Maybe because, like I said, I almost went to that TNA show just because I'm like, man, one of these days I'm gonna when TNA's in town or when Revolver's in Dayton, like one of these days I'm gonna go just to see people face to face, say hi to some old friends I haven't seen in a while. But yeah, like I said, I'm very happily retired. I don't want in the business. I don't want anybody thinking I'm trying to get a job. It would literally be like, hey, haven't seen you in a while. How you been? That's all. The only reason I'd want to go.
Cool. All right, man. Well, it's been a blast. And where can people find you online at?
Well, since we're here to talk about wrestling, like all that stuff's a blast from the past. So, you can find the Rockstar social media and look back at old pictures and old flyers and relive that nostalgia. But what I'm doing now, you can find my band on any social media. Viceroy Kings, we just dropped a new EP. And then just support indie pro wrestling of any variety. I don't have to be involved in it. There's a lot of great guys that came through Rockstar that are doing big things. Some of them are still local. Some of them are still grinding, trying to make it. Some of them have national TV contracts. So support our local talent that are doing big things.
Yes, 100%. So on that note, we are going to say good night, and we'll talk to you guys all later.